Hello, everyone. This is Ken Quigley, and today we're going to be doing a webinar on Link2surveys. Thank you all for joining us. Just to let everyone know that this event is recorded, and we'll be distributing the recording link later in the day or Monday, depending on when we can get it done with the final recording for your review. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so what is Link2surveys? Well, the point of customer surveys is to help businesses harvest insights so they can make more informed decisions. We get that, but good survey software will also help you structure questionnaires using decision trees and skip logic so that the respondents only see the questions that are relevant to them, because that actually lends to a higher rate of completion. Okay, by presenting tailor-made surveys with, as I said, skip logics, respondents complete surveys faster and have higher engagement because they're sifting through less irrelevant material. Okay, Link2surveys works the same way. It has all the tools you need to build intelligent, attractive, efficient, custom branded surveys that your customers will complete, but with the added advantage of CRM integration. So what is that CRM integration? So, and by the way, we're going to be talking about, SurveyMonkey in a little bit, but I just kind of want to start off with, what is unique about Link2surveys. Link2surveys has all the tools, but the big key, like all of our Linktivity products, is that it has that CRM integration. But to say it and to understand it are two different things, so let's get into that. New contacts are added to the ACT database and existing contacts are updated. So as you distribute them, and people fill them out, your existing contacts will be updated and the new ones added to the database. Customer feedback is written directly to the history of each contact that responds to the survey. All respondents are automatically segmented by that group, and I'm going to show you that when they complete it, okay? And that group is automatically created by Link2surveys. Field mapping in Link2surveys allows you to update fields in your ACT database, making it easier and more accurately segmenting contacts based on their own feedback. So if they say something that can be written and change the field value, then you could dynamically add them to different groups, which can then in turn add them to different campaigns. It's creating a very, very effective workflow that only comes from integrating with the CRM. Respondents can also be added to specific subgroups. I love this because this is great feedback we got last week, based on how they respond to answers for better prospecting, and also have scheduled follow-ups in ACT. So, I'm going to cover in a couple of slides the differences between forms and surveys. Forms basically allow you to trigger workflow after a form is completed, but surveys, which are much more direct, allow you to trigger workflow after a specific answer to a question. So much more useful in terms of identifying hot prospects. You can build surveys for other ACT users as well and assign them as the survey owner as they get all the feedback. Little asterisks there indicating that's for the team edition. And then automated drip emails and Link2surveys also are recorded, are triggered as well. So let's go to the next slide. Come on, there we go. Okay, so that's great. Integration is superb, but let's talk about the actual Link2surveys features. Unlimited number of surveys, unlimited number of questions per surveys, unlimited number of responses per year. Sandbox test environment, I'm going to be showing you guys that. Exporting the results to CSV and Excel, okay? Skip logic and answer summaries, and we'll be demoing that as well. Reporting in charts, graphs, and KPIs. Custom branding and colors. Watermarks, shared image library. Link to shrink integration, which if this is the first time you're seeing this, doesn't mean anything, but I'll have the opportunity to demo that, okay? And then ACT integration. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, as for pricing, because no point in getting into it without understanding what it costs, this is how Link2surveys compares to the competition. Link2surveys is $15 or $20 a month, depending on whether or not you get the standard or the team edition, okay? But with the team edition, only one subscription is needed per account because you're actually able to assign survey ownership to other users in ACT. With SurveyMonkey, it's $34 a month, has no ACT integration, okay, is not designed for collaboration. So that's the individual one. The team feature that is designed for collaboration starts at $27 a month, which is obviously closer to what we're charging, but has a minimum 3 users. So now you're at $81. So it is a significant a cost increase. Now, we're going to be covering a lot of material in this, and we're going to be doing a demo. So I want to just kind of reference some of the useful references that you can go to after this event. So first of all, product page on Linktivity, linktivity.net/en/surveys. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to get to that. Difference between web forms and online surveys. That's a blog that I wrote. Really it was kind of answering the unasked question about people that may already have forms or were thinking of forms. What is the difference, and why would you choose one or the other? Best reasons to implement surveys into your business, like what's the use case for surveys in general, and then understanding your customers better with Link2surveys. Again, much more of a review with what we discussed in terms of the ACT integration. Okay. And then finally, let's start the demo. So let's get into that. And let me pull up my screen here. Okay, so here we go. Let's start the demo. This is linktivity.net. And we talked about the product page. You click on products, you can see surveys and quickly review all the material here. Okay, which I'll leave you guys to do on your own. But let's go into my account. Okay, this brings you to the login screen. I'm going to click on login. And now we've got all these buttons here. Now you'll immediately see, anything that that you haven't got a subscription to, it's going to indicate free trial available. Anything that doesn't have that, you've paid for it. Okay, so you can select here, or you can go to the left-hand nav bar, and I'm going to do that. Click on Link2surveys. Okay. Now over here, when you see what's new, that's going to be popping up, and that's going to show you all the changes to all of Linktivity every single time you log in. And we've got some new changes to record this week that are just focused on Link2surveys and actually some of the team products. So this is your your basic welcome screen, your dashboard, if you will, for surveys. We've got one survey here. We're going to be going through this, but I just kind of wanted to go through here. When you first start off, take the setup guide. Go through this. Once you're familiar with it, then you can dismiss it, and this blue bar won't appear the next time you log in. Okay, now drip emails. What are drip emails? Drip emails are things that you can actually configure to be triggered after someone completes the survey. So we're going to talk about other triggers that are inside the surveys. This is more at the survey level. So once it's completed, you can actually build a drip campaign thanking them and maybe getting them engaged in other events, other training things that you've got. So just a few more configurable options. Submissions is exactly what you'd expect. Okay, we don't have any because we haven't launched this. And then the last thing was a feature that we just added this week, and that is images. So what this is a shared library of images across all the team products. Link to quotes, link to forms, link to events. Okay, doesn't really include link to calendar, because there's not a whole lot of image reference to that. But by sharing the library across all team products, you're able to, depending on what your needs are, to upload images to a shared library and use them across all 4 products, as opposed to trying to use a reference link from the internet. Because most people, if they've got an image, they may not have the resources to upload them to an internet-facing location that has a shared link. So this allows you to upload it to a library, and boom, you've got it, and you can insert it into any of your team products. And just click on upload, and it keeps track of your quota. It's got 100 megs, which by today's standards doesn't seem like a lot. I'm gonna have to mute someone here. doesn't seem like a lot, but you know, we compress the images. So you can see here 15 megabytes is actually, you know, we've got quite a few images in here, and it's 15%. Okay, so we figure that, you know, at 15%, you know, you can have many times this and still not be near your ceiling. Okay, let's get into surveys themselves. Now, I've never done a webinar in the last few months since we changed our internet, where I didn't apologize for the speed of it. So I won't make an exception here and say our speed sucks. So if you see some latency, again, it's unlikely you'll experience it on your side. So here's the dashboard. It is showing you all the list of surveys. We only have one. It's showing you search capabilities, which is obviously not needed if you've got one, but filters as well, showing you how you can filter by category, you know, submit information. Okay, submit information is basically who owns the form. Okay, follow-ups, drip campaigns, so on and so forth. Okay, and then you just select and click on apply, but we're not going to do this. And then across here, we've got view the survey. Okay, which I'm actually going to bring up right now just so we have this loaded. Okay, so here's our survey. And then here is our reporting. We've got no submissions, so there's not a lot to report on, but here's the date range. Okay, and we go back. And then here's edit, and then the other options are copy link, okay, which is the, which I'll show you in a minute when we get into this. Create short URL, that was the link to shrink integration that I talked about. We'll show you that as well. And then if you end up doing, let's say you're doing some A/B testing or you're doing similar format surveys, you can duplicate it rather than starting it from scratch, which may be useful when you've got a really complex survey that has lots of triggers and questions and things like that, but you don't have to start from scratch. But let's go into, and then by the way, this is the name. This means it's enabled. I've got no category at this point. Submit to is me. There's no follow-ups configured with this, and I'll get into that in a bit. And then here's the drip information. So all of the configurable options, or most of the configurable options that you'll need to filter by, are display in list view. Okay, now let's get into the actual survey. Yes, we actually have DSL here in this neighborhood because it's all we can get, 10 megabits. So this is what we go through. Okay, so let's go through this. You can see here, this is enabled. Here's where I can add a category. Okay, I'm gonna type this AMA, say add AMA, and now that's all I had to do to add a category. Okay, this is the title that I'm giving it. And this is important because options down at the bottom will allow you to enable or disable that. Here is the actual name that you're going to give it. So, you know, what will it be? Its publishing link. So far, this is https://surveys.linktivity.net / and then whatever name you give it. You click on validate, it verifies that it's available, and you're good. Custom redirect URL is useful if you already have existing answer pages on the website, then you can redirect it to that. Okay, and then here, this is the image that will show at the top of your survey. Now, I just briefly showed it to you up here. This is a negative image, so you can't see it because it's only showing white content, but you'll see it when I displayed it, when I show you the actual survey. Here's footer text. I think it's useful if you've got, if some of the information is going directly into your database, that you let people know that it's going into your database, so that, you know, if there's any GDPR, if there's any CASL compliance issues, this kind of covers you. Okay, right now in North America, or certainly in the United States, there's not that rigid in terms of privacy or spam legislation. But that's changing. We know that it's changing because we've already seen much harsher, more GDPR type legislation being introduced here in Quebec, in Canada. So we know that it's going to eventually evolve across. So privacy rules are important. And then the closing text. fairly straightforward. So let's take a look at some of the options here. Navigation, show all pages, show current and completed pages, hide navigation. So you're going to see the navigation when we get into the preview. Hide survey title, that's self-evident. Hide page title. Page titles are, you know, if you're calling it page 1, page 2, that may not be something that you really want to surface because it's not terribly exciting. Hide linktivity branding. All of our stuff will have some linktivity branding, typically off in the bottom right-hand corner. Some people care, some people don't, so we give that option to suppress. Speaking of suppressions, there's no point in having a survey if you're going to have one joker that submits something over and over again. And much like our form products, this prevents people from submitting a survey multiple times. Okay, this is where you assign the survey manager. Okay, just be mindful of the fact that, you know, you're going to want to make sure this is an active user, they have web API permission. Okay, it's not going through Linktivity accounts, it's going through your act user list. Okay, and here was something that was interesting that was added as a security measure for from one of our customer suggestions. Include submission details in email. This person filled out a survey. They worked in the health industry, very sensitive information, and they didn't like the fact that the confirmation emails they got after every single person completed a survey included some of their answers. So they wanted the confirmation email that had no answers. So this is something that if you select it, it will include the details. If not, it won't. Okay. Assign contacts to group. Now, one of the things when you create a survey, it automatically creates a group, and this is important to note, a group that is created in ACT, and it stores all the contacts. Okay, so every contact that's either existing or created will get linked to this group, so it's much easier follow-up. Okay. And this is where it displays it there. So for any reason you've misnamed it, we're going to actually add the feature where you can unlink and relink if you've misnamed it. And then contact follow-up. Now this is important because I'm recommending for surveys, unlike forms, you disable this because I'm going to show you how you can trigger follow-ups inside Link2surveys. So you don't get a scheduled follow-up after you complete a survey, but you get a scheduled follow-up based on how people answer questions. Okay. So then the last thing is the drip campaign. I put in a drip email to send out a thank you 2 days after they complete it, and you can set in, you know, add in additional ones, and then if you want to create them on the fly, then you can just add it here. Okay. So that covers most of the initial setup options. Now let's get into the actual structure of it. Okay. Now at the top, you can see the link here, and you'll see here link to shrink, and that's where you can create a much shorter URL. For people that aren't familiar with link to shrink, it's kind of like Bitly, but it's totally integrated within all of our products. The advantage of this is if you're posting on social media a lot, especially LinkedIn or Facebook, they will actually either convert or they will remove links that are too long, okay, because they consider them threats, so they remove them outright. If it's a short one like link2.sh/AMA use, then it's likely to be preserved. I've actually, since we started using this internally, I've never seen anyone get removed in a social media post, okay? So right now, here is the structure of your unexpanded structure of your survey. You've got the contact details, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7. Okay, I've rebranded them P2, P3 just for simplicity, so it doesn't take up as much space. But let's expand here. By default, all of these things will be visible here. Okay, and then you can just click on a radio button if you disable it. Okay, if you want to disable it. Now, when you're sending out a survey, and one of the things that I cover in the blogs that I showed you in the initial introductions under additional resources, is what is the difference between a form and a survey? Well, A form is delivered indirectly. You post it on a website, you post it in social media, and people kind of gravitate to it and they fill it out. There isn't a direct invitation to fill it out in most cases. Whereas a survey is often quite the opposite. You will email them out directly to a respondent, okay, and they will either complete it or not complete it. And because of that, you may not want to use as much information or make them jump through any extra hoops, because in most cases, because you're sending it out by invite, you will already have this, okay? Just a tip here. And then you can see here, the asterisks are the ones that are required and these two are not, okay? Now, one thing I'm gonna point out here is I have put in an additional type of field called internal static. Okay, and what I've done is, and what internal static means is, it is mapping to a particular field a default value. Okay, so what I can say here is every person that fills this out, okay, now I've got this deselected, but if I was to do that, every person that fills this out is going to, in the ABC field, have, say, completed, populated into that field. So that's why I talked earlier about field mapping. Now the customer, the person filling this out isn't going to see it. This is because it's an internal static field. So just by virtue of them completing this, this is going to update your ACT database, and you can then populate them into groups and trigger additional either marketing or sales workflow. Okay. But this is pretty standard stuff in terms of contact fields. As I said before, generally better with less is more. Okay. Now let's go to the first question. So since we last demoed this internally, we've added images. Okay. So what are the images? Well, you can actually dress up your survey to include images from your library. Last week we had reference links only. So you actually had to put in the URL of where it was published. Now you can actually upload it from your library or from your hard drive, okay? You can see here that this is spanning 100%, so it's going across. So let's actually see what that looks like. Okay, I'm actually going to use the feature called Sandbox. One of the things when we were first exploring with the previews is that the previews would actually generate results and write to the database. So what we wanted to do was create a sandbox so that you can actually test the logic of your surveys without, writing to your database. Okay, so let's take a look. So you can see here, this is the white logo that we had, okay? And then you can see the image in the background that I was able to upload, okay? And you see it's half-toned. That's called opacity, okay? So you can actually half-tone it so it really works nicely as kind of a thematic watermark, okay? And then here, I'm gonna just click on 1 and 1 because there's no verification. There's no CAPTCHA here because this is Sandbox, okay? But now you can see what an image will look like. And this is an image 100% from the left over to the right. Same thing with the field here, okay? Now, for those that wanted to see, what the customization looks like, here's where the image was uploaded. And here is where I set the opacity, okay? So I could set the opacity at whatever level and that will gray it out accordingly and create that nice watermark look, okay? Okay, and then the other configurable option that I forgot to mention is that you've got 2 templates to work with. And just to kind of give you a quick sense of what that will look like, if I go here, save, and then go back, I've got a different kind of theme that I can play with, okay? And you see here that the logo is missing here, it's centered, and they put it over here. So it's just a different way of looking at it. We're gonna add a compact version probably early next week to give you the 3 choices, much like we have with forms, okay? Let's get back to the questions. Okay, so you can see here, I'm gonna actually go back because I prefer this one. Go back. okay? So you can see here, this is a one question page. And again, another difference between forms and surveys is that forms require you to kind of put all the questions on one page, and this allows you to step them out 1, 2, 3 questions at a time, and then build in that skip logic so people aren't exposed to questions that don't relate to their answers. Okay, so getting back here. So you've seen the image. You've seen the text, the introductory text. One of the things we added was the ability to add color enhancements and font sizes since last week. And now let's go to the question. We cover all kinds of questions as well, okay? So you've got text, open-ended. So text is like a character field, open-ended is a memo, drop-down is self-evident, multiple choice, number, slider. That's literally where you can slide something across a panel from left to right, indicating, increasing preference, and then rating scale, 1 out of 5 stars kind of thing, checkbox. And then you see internal versus internal static versus internal variable. An internal variable field, now this would be one that you would only use once, okay? But an internal variable field would be something that you would use to track where they sourced this survey from. Now, surveys typically, as I said, are emailed out directly, so this is less relevant than forms. But if you are surfacing the links to these surveys in your social media, on your website or specific pages in your website, you might find it useful to say, okay, internal variable here, you can actually see the value is, this came from an IP address, this came from a referral URL or referral host name, but we're going to go back to drop downs. Hopefully I didn't, there we go, I didn't blow it up. Okay, so now, simple question, do you use e-marketing to promote your products or services? Okay, pretty standard. Okay, that's kind of like, that's my opening volley. I want to determine who I'm dealing with, okay? And if they're not into that, then the rest of the survey doesn't pertain to them. So what I've done is I've got yes and no. I've got allow multiple selections. Obviously, yes and no isn't relevant for that, okay? And then the final one is allow free form text. So if you put in a drop down and you want people to write in an other answer, then you would click this, and that avoids you having to have that other field that you sometimes see in other survey products, okay? So now that's the first panel. So you see here that I've got a trigger, okay? And this is really how easy the skip logic is. So the condition is answer to P1, the answer is no. And if the answer is no, okay, they don't need to go through the rest of the survey, and they can go straight to the bottom here and see, well, actually just see how it works here. Okay, I'm gonna go to no, and it brings them right to the last panel here. See how it skips over this one, this one, this one, this one, and brings you right to here. Please let us know if you have any other questions. Why am I asking these guys about their, what third-party product they're using or what AMA tier they're using, what's their distribution, if they said on their first answer that they're not using anything, okay? So that's a simple trigger. That's, the most basic of skip logics, okay? And now let's go to the next one. And we're gonna say yes to this. Okay, and you can see I put in another image. Okay, which do you use for e-marketing? I've made this mandatory, and they can select one of these three. Now, if they select these first two, they will go to a different page. If they select the third one, see here, we're on 3, they will go to 4. Okay, now let's go to 4. See here, you can see that one question, and if the answer is third-party product, go to page 4. If the answer is AMA or a paid tier of AMA, go to page 5. That's how simple it is. Okay, skip logic is really, quite easy. And this is one of the things that we really geared towards, is making the survey, because if you ever used SurveyMonkey, really, really powerful tools. But as you get more into it, you really have to develop some expertise. And this is something that you can say, hey, if they answer this or this, jump to this particular page. Okay, now you've got other options as well, like submit the form, show a message. Okay, and I'm going to get into that. Modify a follow-up. Okay, and then add contacts to group. So if they answer a certain way, then you can actually help identify them in your database as a new prospect. Okay, but in this case, this is pretty simple. So I'm going to say if they answer one way or the other, they answer third party, they're going to one page. If they answer to the other, they're going to go to this. So we're going to go here. Okay, so this is what they've said. I use a third party, and I say, hey, what is your monthly spend here? Less than 100, 100 to 200, 200 to 300, 400 plus. What is the primary reason that you use that? Ease of use, and I allow multiple answers here and even allow them to freeform, okay? And then how many emails do you send each month, okay? Now, I put in drop downs. I don't like putting in numbers because quite frankly, people aren't gonna guess. They're gonna say, oh, okay, 5 to 10, 10,000 plus. They're gonna be able to answer a lot more accurately and quickly, as opposed to 9,500, which is gonna be harder to calculate. You want them to answer quickly. So now let's take a look at the triggers here. So they've put in answer for Q9 right here. So any of these go to page 6. Okay, so I've got the page 6 here, but here, okay, if they have answered 100 to 200, 200, 300, or 400 plus, I added them to a particular group. Okay, now this is a cool feature. When you create this and you select add to contacts to group, okay, down here, it will prompt you to either select a group or create a group. And if you select create a group, it will nest that new group right in under the survey group that creating the survey created. So it's all very intuitively organized, and you don't have to go toggling back and forth between your ACT and Link2surveys. You can pretty much finish everything, create the groups that you need, all from here, and have everything written to ACT without having to toggle back and forth. Okay, so we've got this. Now, we've got these things, and the reason that I identified this one is because if they are spending 1 to 200, 200 to 300, 400, heck, I want to quote them AMA, right? Because I think that the value of AMA on a dollar basis, if you're over $100, is a lot more compelling, because we've got, obviously the ACT integration, but we've also got not only outbound nurturing workflow, but inbound CRM workflow that the others can't do. So if they're already in that spend bracket, I think they're excellent prospects. And I've said, take these guys based on this particular answer, okay, or this particular answer, and put them into a group so that I can identify them, okay? Sorry, just one second. Okay, so that I can identify them. One second here. Okay, so now I've got that, and I've also said, go to page 6. Now, what is page 5? Page 5 was where if they answered, that they use either AMA Basic or AMA paid tier, they brought to this page. So what you're seeing is similar type questions. So basically, I've duplicated the questions here, okay, but I've eliminated the spend question, because that isn't relevant. I know precisely what they've spent. And now they're telling me how many emails do you spend per month or send per month, and what is the approximate size of your distribution list, okay? Now, maybe I don't want to include that. I can make changes to it, but in this one, I basically copied and pasted the same kind. A lot of people don't understand the difference between sends and distribution lists, but you'll see here that I put 2 questions on a page and I made each one of them 50%, okay? I've got no triggers on this because they landed on this page based on what they said up here. Okay, so now we get down to here. I put no triggers. So let's go to page 6, which is where they jumped here. Remember, if you put in pretty much anything, you selected anything in terms of how much you're sending, okay, it brought you down to page 6. So what's on page 6? Can we email you a quote showing what AMA would cost? Yes, no. Okay. Now, if I want to identify these people as quickly as possible, okay, now I'm going to get an email every single time someone, someone completes a survey. But if I want to make sure that nothing gets missed, what I can do is I can create a trigger that says, if they say yes, modify the follow-up options. You remember during the settings where it said create a follow-up? This will now override that. If you select it, it will override and say now follow up only if they complete this question with a yes. So think of what I've done here. I've asked them if they want a quote, and if they say yes, ACT has automatically scheduled a follow-up. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so this allows them to allows the user to immediately be notified so that they know no matter what, in addition to the email, when they go to ACT, they're going to have a scheduled sales call already in ACT waiting for them. Okay, so let's go to, we'll go to the next page, version 7. Okay, please let us know if you have any questions or comments. And then I put in here a text display, thanks for your time. Okay, so what does that look like? You go through here, you can see here, what is your monthly spend? I'm going to say here, okay, what is the primary reason? Let's just say ease of use. How many emails do you send out per month? Okay, now I'm on page 4. Okay, it immediately goes to page 6. Can we email you a quote to show you what the cost is? We're going to say yes, and then you've got the final answer. Okay, which is the, thank you, please add any comments. Okay, now what is the sandbox feature? I told you initially that it was something that allowed you to kind of go through and test the logic of a survey, so you can go back and forth and it wouldn't write data to your database, or it wouldn't muck up your results, because we showed where you get the submission record, and you don't want things kind of cluttering up your KPIs or your graphs and things like that. So this would allow you to test the logic. It wouldn't present you with CAPTCHAs or any verifications or anything like that. So this allows you to go back and forth. But what's nice is you can actually save your sessions, open them up, and kind of go back and test different answer scenarios, okay, to see that the logic is working as expected. Okay, and that is Link2surveys. Okay, and the, as I mentioned, we've made it so that it's as customizable. You can make it as pretty as you like. In this case, we've made it about AMA. Okay, so obviously we've got that, that background watermark that's setting the theme. We want it to be brandable, so we put our keystroke thing at the top. And whichever format you use, it's, I find it more of a hint than, screaming in your face, with it allowing you to surface the information up front, okay, in a way that isn't too distracting. But it's certainly setting a nice tone, and it makes it look like, you're presenting this a little bit more professionally. So let me pause here and see if there's any questions. People can unmute themselves if they like. Vic, have you seen any questions submitted in the chat?
No, nothing there.
Okay, might be getting off easy. Okay, so we've talked about the integration. Let me go back here. Okay, just a quick review here. Okay, certainly familiarize yourself a little bit with some of the talking points up here. Okay, and then go to the Link2surveys features because we want to be very specific. What are our Link2surveys features? If people are doing the Pepsi challenge between this and other survey products, we want to make sure that they can check all the boxes off to make sure that it suits their needs. So we've put in some answers to some commonly asked questions regarding survey features, okay? But then there's the specific ACT features, okay? So we cover the ACT integration, what they're looking for, because, you know, we don't expect to be able to build survey products as, you know, advanced as SurveyMonkey, which is a, you know, a multi-billion-dollar company. But let's be honest, most ACT users don't need that kind of complexity. Okay, what they need is ease of use, survey flexibility, and to have everything right back to ACT. Okay. And then, you know, your link to deeper integration. Again, the constant theme is, are you lucky enough to use ACT and have that, you know, those features integrate right into your CRM? Okay, here's a short animated video that we've got. Okay, and then we've built in a comparison chart to show you the differences between the standard. Standard is $180, $15 per month, and then team is $240. Okay, now, what are some of the differences? Well, we can go through all of these, but shared image library, I showed you that, where you can upload from your hard drive and share it across all the different team products except calendar. CRM workflow with automatic, I see some troubling typos here, with automatic scheduling of follow-ups, okay? What that means is, you, as you saw, either at the survey level or at the question level, you can build in workflow that gets written to your CRM and actually becomes part of your task list. Link to shrink integration, which I showed you, you can, you know, just click on that little link to shrink feature and then create an even shorter URL, which is far more useful for your social media integration and for your link tracking, okay? Trigger drip campaigns upon survey completion. So if you want to send out emails afterwards, that's available in the team. And then assigning another ACT user as a campaign owner. So if you're talking to your customers and they're kind of curious about, you know, where does the features of one end and the other begin, then really just go to the bottom and see if any of these resonate. If it's a single user, in a lot of cases, they'll be fine with this. However, they may want to have the ability to, you know, to trigger follow-ups, even if they are just a single user. Okay, so just quickly showing you the, if we go to the blogs, okay, you can kind of scroll through these. I believe we cover, I think it's on the 3rd page. Reason to implement business surveys into your, surveys into your business, and then understanding your customers better with Link2surveys. But the one that I definitely want you guys to review, okay, is the differences between web forms and online surveys. This is a blog that I wrote this week, okay, and here's the main talking points. Purpose. The main difference between web forms and online surveys is their purpose. A web form typically is used to collect specific information from a user, such as contact details or payment information. On the other hand, surveys is to gather opinions, feedback, or attitudes from groups. The next one is delivery. Web forms are typically, you know, positioned on a web page, and it's a very indirect delivery, and whereas surveys are often emailed out. Questions. I'm going to let you guys go through all of these, but this is worthwhile because you may have customers that are using landing pages in AMA and they think it's sufficient, whereas you can, you know, introduce surveys that can do far more easily, okay, and are accessible to any kind of user, and for a very reasonable price. Okay, and that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. So let me just see. I see I got one more question. Okay, I'm still taking all in. There's a lot of wow factors. Thank you, Bridget. Appreciate it. Okay. We put in a fair bit of, this was a fairly big investment, and this was something that, you know, even, you know, last year we kind of envisioned that would, you know, round out our portfolio. So now with this, I get to give you all a sneak preview of what you're going to hear about next week. Okay. So next week, ACT, on the product call, ACT is going to announce a partnership with Linktivity, where they are going to sell Linktivity bundles, not surveys yet, they're going to get to that, but it's going to include team bundles of quotes, forms, and events, each of them bundled with a corresponding team version of calendar, okay? And all of those are going to be 25% off, okay? Now, that isn't nearly as exciting as the fact that when you buy them through ACT, and ACT is the only one that sells those bundles, we're not allowed to sell them. When you buy them through ACT, they count towards your new bookings and your ARR quotas. So now Linktivity not only improves your customer's experience, increases the stickiness, but it allows you as a reseller to hit those targets, okay? Now, as I said, Link2surveys is not part of the initial bundling, because when we were negotiating this last month, the product wasn't available yet. So now that we're introducing it this week, okay, most of the work was already done, so they wanted to wait to stage 2, but they know that this is a great product, and they're looking forward to including this in the offerings. So that's some pretty good news for ACCs, because as we all know, going out and getting greenfield deals with new customers that are new to ACT is really tough. It's literally one of the most expensive conversion processes that you can get, okay? ACT spends, I think, about $150 per converted lead. It's a very, very high spend, okay? Whereas if you've got something that integrates with ACT Premium Cloud, then you can go to your ACT Premium Cloud customers and say immediately, hey, here's some Biggie Fry options that didn't exist before, that improves your ACT experiences, leverages the API that you have immediate access to as an APC customer, and you can use the team calendar, the events, you can use the link to forms, or link to quotes, okay? So pretty fantastic options. Just want to go through one final distinction, and this just came up at BPAC. And actually, Bridget, it was your sister that brought this up, so I think this was worth making note of, is link to forms, link to surveys, link to events are all considered account-based products. What do I mean by that? It means that you typically don't need to buy more than one per ACT work group, okay? And with that, if you buy one link to events, link to forms, link to surveys, then you can assign, as the team product, you can assign other people to be owners of a form or an event or a survey, okay? And that's how you can really save money, because you'll have one person in charge of maybe making them, but the whole team could take advantage of them, okay? Let me give you an example. Link to forms. On our website, we have quote request buttons. So people click on it, they fill out a quote request form. That goes to the sales team. If it's a service request, that goes to the support team, okay? If it's something about have questions about your bill, that would go to admin, okay? So that way I've got 3 different forms, 3 different purposes, engaging 3 different users in my database, okay? So that's really useful, and it also means that you can save money by buying one. Now, what's the difference? Well, link to quotes is obviously very different, because now each person that is quoting will have to have their own account. So that is what we call a user-based subscription. It's still a team product, but the team elements are more about shared resources, shared dashboards, shared quote list, shared reporting, shared templates, shared emails, things like that. That's much more of shared resources, but it is a per user. So when you're talking to people about things like surveys, events, forms, really push the functionality, the integration, and the savings, because if they think about calendars and they think about quotes, that is a per user, and people are actually going to be quite sensitive to how that can escalate in the cost. But when you talk about $20, per month at the account level, people are far more receptive to that, and you can really improve their experience and the account stickiness for a relatively small budget. Okay, let me just do one last question check. Okay, perfect, nothing there. Thank you guys for turning out. This was something that we're really passionate about, really excited. We've really got this product to be where we want it to be. We actually finished this product late last month, but we kind of sat on it waiting to build out all of the features, and we're really happy with where we landed. And we got, as I said, we always do internal demos, and we got some great feedback from the team that made this an even better product. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Have a great weekend, and as I promised at the beginning, I'll send out a recording link sometime either today or Monday. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ken. Great stuff.
Bye-bye.